National parks are a showcase of our country's natural beauty. And they keep making them. I mean, they don't make them, they're already there, but they keep drawing lines and saying that's a national park. And with that designation comes a whole new set of expectations. You might have heard of Zion, Bryce Canyon National Parks, but have you heard of Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument? No? Becoming a national park brings a whole new level of prestige and tourism. Usually about a 20% increase on average tourism seen in the region. And there are concerns when making a national park, will it be able to handle the influx of tourism? However, there's a couple national parks that doesn't really seem to bother if they have more tourists than they're capable of handling at the moment. Zion. Because even though that land was there before, being entitled national park brings in a whole new crowd who will say, well, I mean, it's a national park, it must be something. And also increase land protection. And since they keep designating, I was wondering, what's the next one gonna be? Now if you Google this, you'll find quite a few lists of like, oh, these should become the next national park. I want to be a little bit more precise and see if I could actually try to predict what the next one would be. And so I had to figure out what qualifications make a piece of land more likely to become a national park. Right now, there are 63 national parks in the US, with the last one being New River Gorge added in 2020. So we'll probably see another one soon. So I had to look at a few different things. Now, if you look at this map where the national parks are in the US, you can see a pretty clear split of east versus west. Considering 77% are west of the Mississippi, I'd say that's probably the best indicator where a national park is going to be. There's more than just that. An interesting thing about national parks, there's no real size requirement. For example, the largest national park, Wrangell St. Elias in Alaska, is larger than 9 states. However, the smallest one isn't even a full square mile. They made the park around the Gateway Arch a national park for some reason. So it's important to note, size is not really a factor. They can also be anywhere within U.S. territory. Considering 2 territories, American Samoa and the Virgin Islands, both have a national park. So it could even be in somewhere like Guam. Now, when I say it can be anywhere, I mean it can be anywhere. Because White Sands National Park in New Mexico can sometimes be closed because it's next to a missile testing range, and so you're just gonna have to deal with that, I guess, sometimes. Sorry, can't visit it today, they're blowing up sand. But I also had to look a couple other factors. For example, what were the national parks before they became national parks? Obviously, they're a piece of land. A lot of them had some other form of designation in governmental land. Now, as you can see from the pie chart, overall, a large percentage of them were national monuments. 31, in fact, which is 49% of all national parks. Now, not quite the 77% west of the Mississippi, but that's a pretty good indicator. What's also interesting to note about this chart is that the 8 parks in this light blue section of other government land, no 2 designations in there are the same. For example, there is only one national park that was a national forest, one that was a national lakeshore, one that was a state park, so it's unlikely that the next national park will be one of those. So sorry fans of Goblin Valley and Dead Horse Point state parks. Doesn't look like they're making the cut. There's a couple interesting former designations in here. For example, Theodore Roosevelt, located in North Dakota, was at first a national memorial park, the only one of its kind, and then was a national wildlife refuge. Haleakala, I'm definitely mispronouncing that one, was split off from the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. But that's over the history of 100 years of making national parks, so I decided to look at a smaller section of time, the most recent 10 national parks listed here on screen, and what the trends were within that. And as you can see, national monument increased, and other types of government land increased. What's most noticeable is that having no previous designation greatly decreased. It also used to be a very large chunk, and now it's just 1/10. Last time a national park got designated without anything previous, in 2000, the Cuyahoga Valley in Ohio. Now this graph here shows that, as time moves on, it was pretty common early on for national parks to have no previous designation. You can see right here, national monuments overtakes that and keeps going. Now, this makes sense since, at some point, eventually, they're gonna declare all of the land that they think is worthy of having some sort of status as protected. They're gonna run out of land. Makes sense that a lot of it recently has just been pretty much changing it from one name type to another. Granted, there is increased protections for the land there, and restrictions on what you can do there. While 77% of all national parks are west of the Mississippi, only 60% of the past 10 have been. So, that's something. And one of them is west of the Mississippi by just a few feet. In order to become a national park, a proposal has to be sent to Congress, and then Congress evaluates it based on a few criteria. Like, what are the resources in the park, and do they have enough protection already? How can it be used by the public? And, whether or not it's economically viable. Is it worth it to put money into this area? Now, there have been a couple of national parks abolished in the past, so it is possible for a national park to have its status redacted, but it hasn't happened in a while. Also, looking at the most recent 10, 5 of those were in a state that did not previously have a national park. For example, Gateway Arch in Missouri, New River Gorge in West Virginia, Indiana Sand Dunes. It definitely feels like they're shifting towards trying to balance out national parks. However, it's also interesting to look at is when the next national park will be made. There was a study done to see, if there's any influence between politics and when a national park got created. They looked at 3 different things, what party was in control at the time, whether or not there was high electoral competition, this being defined as if the majority had less than 55% control, and if it is an election year. And it found that if it is an election year, there's more likely to be a national park created. But if there's high electoral competition, it was less likely there's national parks created. And also, when Democrats held majority, it was found that they produced more national parks. However, this was done before Trump's presidency, in which 4 national parks were created, so that probably skews the data a little bit. Also, during this, I learned that 7 national parks in Alaska were signed into existence on the same day, December 2nd, 1980. So, what to do with that information? I don't know. Based on this, what are some likely candidates to be the next national park? I think a strong contender is Craters of the Moon National Monument and Preserve, located in southern Idaho. Now, if you don't know about the Craters of the Moon, well, let me tell you. It gets its name from its alien-looking landscape caused by volcanic activity in the past. And it meets a lot of the criteria. It's west of the Mississippi, is a national monument, and, well, Idaho doesn't really have its own national park yet, not really. Idaho is a sliver of Yellowstone, but you can't really do anything in there. So this would be its first real national park. Its natural beauty speaks for itself, and also there were talks of it becoming a national park in the past, but those proposals got shut down, so maybe it could be a revival. However, it's unsure if the nearby town of Arco would be able to handle the influx of tourism. It's already a decently popular tourist attraction, but could it handle the full status of national park? For a candidate east of the Mississippi, you have the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area. That's a mouthful, for sure. Located in northern New Jersey next to Pennsylvania, there hasn't been a national recreation area made into a national park yet, which would line up with these 8 over here, each one having their own unique designation beforehand. Also, there's a lot more towns nearby, so it'd be more well-equipped to deal with an influx of tourism. Something, came to mind while I was doing this was why does it matter? Why does it matter if something is a national park? Sure, it brings a lot more tourism, it brings a lot more awareness to it, but, why should I wait for the next thing to be declared a national park when I could just
go somewhere?
It got me looking at things in an area that I hadn't considered before. Maybe not everything is worth being a national park, but there might just be something amazing, like maybe an hour drive for you. So, considering when I went to see national parks in Utah, I thought one of the coolest things was driving through the Red Canyon, which was right next to a national park, but was just in national forest itself. So, there's all these incredible little things nearby that are just overlooked because they don't have the status. So, check your Google Maps, see if there's any interesting state parks or national forests or national recreation areas near you. Might find some even better than national park. Now, as I mentioned briefly at the top of the video, this was a final for a class project. Just thought I'd upload it here, see what you guys think of it. So, thanks for watching. Check out the other Ocean Man social medias in the description, especially the Twitch. It's where I do most of my stuff. Hopefully, Utah video coming out soon, and